When tragedy hits, we start building. We construct intellectual and emotional defenses so thick that we eventually forget there's a person underneath them. David was 9 when his mother died. At that age, a child tries to make the world make sense, even with broken logic. He decided his private thoughts had killed her, a theory that perfectly fit the evidence of a suddenly empty kitchen. To survive the guilt, David recruited his high intelligence. He spent decades constructing a mental fortress he called the library. It was built from systems theory and recursive logic, a place where he could convert vulnerable needs into manageable, abstract artifacts. By middle age, David could diagram any psychological system. He was brilliant and he was literate, but he realized that understanding his pain didn't cure it. It just meant his angst could now quote Rumi at 3 in the morning. A flawless intellectual fortress works as a shield, but it also functions as a seal. Beneath the brilliance and the systems, the original wound remains, protected from the very thing that might actually reach it. Across town, Ed was running a different survival script. Separated from David by class and system, Ed's life was organized around a similar hole. His father was murdered before Ed was born. Ed's family functioned like a calcified ecosystem. His mother lived in a 40-year defensive brace, while a stepfather used the physical care of Ed's sister as leverage to dominate the household. Ed's sister, silent and severely disabled, became the family's moral center. To fill the silence in the house, Ed talked constantly. He used a rapid-fire, non-linear rush of sentences to talk for two, ensuring his sister's presence was always accounted for. After 20 years of heroin use, Ed had managed 11 months clean, but a sudden inheritance from his grandmother threatened to upend his progress. For a brain wired for feast or famine, sudden money feels like a catastrophic stressor. One man uses PhD-level theories, the other uses heroin and frantic speech. On the surface, they have nothing in common, but both employ survival strategies that keep them trapped in the exact same kind of orbit. In orbital mechanics, two bodies moving around each other are perfectly predictable. The math produces a clean, closed loop that never changes. But in the 1890s, Henri Poincaré realized that the moment you introduce a third mass to that equation, the stability disappears. This creates deterministic chaos. The math stays lawful, but nearby trajectories separate exponentially. The predictability horizon becomes finite, and the future refuses to stay knowable. We see this in our own solar system. Mercury's eccentricity is chaotic, meaning that over millions of years, its orbit shifts unpredictably. The clockwork image of the planets only survives if you look at it through a very narrow window of time. David and Ed were trying to treat their multivariable relational lives like a simple two-body problem. They were fighting the inherent chaos that appears the moment more than one person is in the room. Ed's breakthrough started with a letter written in the voice of the father he never knew. It didn't ask for perfection. It gave him one instruction: get a door that closes. He used part of the money to rent a room. By letting the rest of the inheritance sit untouched in an account, Ed signaled to his nervous system that the famine had ended. He had created a boundary the stepfather couldn't cross. Meanwhile, David received a text from his wife, Xiaoling. She was describing a shift in her values, a moment of vulnerability sent across time zones. David's reflex was to draft a brilliant analytical essay in response. It was his standard move: use high-level concepts to maintain a safe emotional distance. But this time, he deleted the draft. David sent 5 words instead. What changed your mind? He added 2 digits, 35. It was their private cipher for a teenage cancer prediction, and the found time they were currently living on. He handed her a raw proof of memory without the usual intellectual footnotes. Shifting a system of this scale begins with a single relational choice that defies your oldest defensive reflex. Ed walked into his sister's room. For the first time in 40 years, he sat down and chose not to fill the air with sentences. He sat in the silence and gave her a look that wasn't a performance. He didn't have a story to tell. He simply stayed. That same afternoon, David was on his kitchen floor next to his adult daughter. She wasn't asking for anything. As he sat there, David's leg began to go numb. His brain immediately tried to turn the numbness into a philosophical essay on the body. He felt the urge to grab his pen. Instead, he said no. He dropped the analytical clipboard and stayed on the floor with his daughter. Real change happens in these quiet, unremarkable moments. It's the choice to stop performing and stay in the room with the people you love. Sitting in those rooms, both men realized the same thing. The fortresses they spent decades building were never actually locked from the outside. The handle was on the inside. The danger was never outside the door. The danger was the act of guarding it. The universe operates through continuous relational negotiation. It stays recognizable, not through absolute control, but through constant attunement to its own chaotic motions. There is deep relief in realizing position is always differential. You don't have to be a fixed point, just be in the conversation. Breakthroughs like these arrive quietly. They sound like the small, slightly embarrassed laughter of a person realizing they can finally put their armor down.